So we have 3 questions to begin with here. What is the difference between jikta and attachment to self? Jiksok la dawa dang dakla kasa shencha ki keba kaharyo ade.
Ure. Dala shencha sudu ko dala chakbal sigora.
Not dala chakbal.
Oh, chakbal is a chakbal shencha. Taking also ale tagitine komera. Oh, starting as a such a language pumbu ngabute. Oh, the shamba logbe, she says she let it travel back. No, that's such a language pumbu, tangmateling also. Ye shamba logbam, ye joaki be she better. Enemies are lapsuchi or rest chamber. Diriwa. Tinita and the Calciore. Dala shenjata sigora.
And darkness shencha and chakba and chakba.
Dala chakbada and then Jixola town nearly cabayora. Jixola towasene, Narangwine to a zimbati sigora. Narangwine to a zimbati. Jixo sudo, Kiji and Jigber and she change Pumbunga la sigora. Kiji and Jigber and she change Pumbula, and then Rangwine to be Tayo about Tower and Jixola Tower sigora. Ko Kiji and Jig don't get your mother your maritina, Rangwine to be Tata to the young to be your mother. Tayinang arazu tangzingi nganga san rangwine tuba tagyora. Chidan jikta su duza kansa dangzil sigora. Saje nyele pumbula. Keji jikbatan jikbas jikbe sauce pumbunga tel sigora. Oh dinaliane rangwine tuba tayo batawatel jiktola tawas. Jikbe rangshi che pumbinalia nga rangwa chiba. Sigora. Tinjiktas consact on Zinsigora. Oh, Dala Chakbadine called Dala Shenjaje Rangune Truba Madana ko Shenja Yungura. Hagbardo Dala Hagbardo, Sel and Debarzipa, Sem Sugdo Atelia, Chapasigua, and the Shugule Num Shubaneshu, Kakacheka, Nansumpa, Delishenja Sigua, Dala Chakba Yungura.
So, what is the difference between? Oh, well, jikta means view of. What do you say? Reifying view of the transitory, or reifying view of the perishing aggregates is the way we translate that. An attachment to self. We were talking about attachment in the context of thinking that the aggregates are pure, and then that there's the way to reverse. Then we have to develop a kind of I was using the translation disgust. Sometimes that's a little strong, disgust for the self. It's just basically a literal translation would mean turning your mind away from the aggregates. So, but here the question seems to be a little bit different. When we talk about attachment to self, it really means that you have see the self, and it's just simply seeing the self in an exaggerated way, something that exceeds what is. You're seeing a attractiveness that exceeds what is actually there, and then attaching to it means very similar to the analogy is that you of having oil in a cloth, that it's very hard to get it out. So it's a very strong sense of attachment. But then when we talk about, but that doesn't have any kind of relationship to seeing the self in the way that the reifying view of the perishing aggregates does. We say perishing aggregates because the aggregates are constantly changing from one mode to the next and disintegrating. So really, because it's in a constant state of change, there's no real basis. I mean, in reality, there's no basis for seeing what do you say, for what's the word? Grasping at a self that's based upon those perishing aggregates, a self that exists from its own side. But we instinctively do that. When we talk about this view of the perishing aggregates as a reifying view of the perishing aggregates, it's really talking about grasping at a personal self, at a self of persons. And so then but that kind of seeing the self as existing from its own side, that doesn't occur that's not, what is being pointed out anyway by this attachment to self. So the next question then, do Drebung Yikcha scholars say that all bodhisattvas realize emptiness before entering the path of accumulation? Then, so the Drebungi Yiche Gangala de Kasa Tsoklam Ma Chukron Dombani Dogi De, Dende Sigi Dege.
Mude. Dombani Dobala, Solam Thabkhe Mara. Dongbani tunji siki tala tene topala solam tokumare. Lamlama shukane tongi topa yora.
Ini yang Changchu Sempa Ganga Tsolama Jukona Doni Dogi Yore Be.
Ma dongi chida ma dogi chini yore. Wongdi yene tambu tongi to Changchu Sem Kigira. Wongbo number yena.
Oh, number.
Oh, yeah. Wongbo number yena tambu tongi to ani Changchu Sem Kigira. Wongdi zune tambu Changchu Sem Ki. Tene ti chele tongi yora. Neba yomare.
You can understand emptiness before entering the path of accumulation. It's you understand it. It says realize emptiness here. Just you can realize emptiness by means of you can have a conceptual understanding of emptiness. But as to whether all bodhisattvas realize emptiness before entering the path of accumulation, that some bodhisattvas do and some bodhisattvas don't. It's said that those who have, for lack of a better translation, sharp faculties, it's said that they do realize emptiness before entering the path of accumulation. But those who have, relative to the sharp faculties, dull faculties, these two words, sharp and dull, don't really convey the meaning, but that's the way, it's a literal translation anyway. And it's sort of like the sharp are geniuses and the dull are
Ordinary schmuck.
no, not ordinary schmucks.
I'm joking, they're not
The
ordinary
dull are
schmuck.
ordinary sharp faculty people. So anyway, I think it's more like that. But anyway, the translation is sharp and dull. You'll hear that translation often. It's just a relative term. And so dull, those bodhisattvas of dull faculties, then dull mental faculties, they then generate the altruistic spirit of enlightenment, bodhicitta, before entering the path of accumulation. And then later they, well, not before, but just as they enter, in that way they enter the path of accumulation, and then they later generate the, what do you say? They later realize emptiness. Then the Sumbade. Given the conclusion in verse 230, how does one make sense of how prayers function to affect physical matter? Verse 230. Did Leia Jube Tsiche Ngabade.
Rabji Chubara.
Not Rabje Jube.
Really?
Rabje Jube Tsiche
Ngabade.
Okay, so how does one make sense of how prayers function to affect physical matter? That one says, intangible things do not produce so-called motility, thus the life force is not agent of the body's movements. So, for example, stories of healing and stoppage of fire from Lama Zopa's house here in Washington last summer. The fire burned all around the area, but stopped 3 feet from his main house. Stories of healing and stoppage of fire from Lama Zopa's house here in Washington last summer. Kunze de Diena de Casa de Tsiche Ngaba Yena Dene Shapden de Munam Gandres Chu Bambo Yoba Chu de Casa Sukbo la Sukla Gandres Gurgidus and the Casa Gandres Gurgidus Berna de Danin Lama Zubagi Kanva Tanya with the Magic Shorson, then kongi kangba tanyeba lebede iniam kangba de me shorma son de kaza foot sum gikeba bet tanyeba lebede then de iniam kangba de barma son konta de kaza chapten mambo nang ne de dendre jumba des kaza be de then iniam Shapten Jaya de countries because Mela because Gurgide and
다들 가르치는 간식을 줘야지 않았어.
because it's Shapten ki Nuba de
뭐 샵대체는 메마마를 쓰거라.
no they may
뭐 샵대 마셔내 그 메시지를 마도 지 봐서된 배바시제 잠불리칸가 독마라. 대고라 메디테인도 되네 수용마도 인기라.
no they
샵대체는 코스는 마사지. 근데 대부 용도 쓰기라.
no they
수놈 dembe 미 상반남전 루시아라.
no they
근데 인식이래.
no they
다이나 샵대 마셔내 코베 배판도 eng에밖에 요마로.
no they
강갈 반도 샤그라. 파루질 코치는 파루질 되기라.
no they
네.
there's no certain there's no certainty that well, it's possible for prayers to have an effect upon effect on in this way, based upon that through saying prayers you accumulate merit, and then as a result of that merit, then the fire didn't burn there. But it's also possible that if you didn't say prayers, the fire could just burn up to the house and then go off somewhere else. So otherwise, you'd have to say that, you know, if it's really just dependent on the prayers, then then the fires would be, you know, like consuming the world. So it's like that.
샵대체는 펜시그레시 될라베.
No,
수남 사니 텔레테니코.
no.
다들
So it's possible, though, for prayers to it's possible for them to affect the house, affect the house in such a way that it didn't, you know, get burned.
나간다.
No, they Drisa.
This way. Oh yeah. 다들 비슷한 거 쪽인다나. 그래서
So now we'll begin the lesson.
숨바디바. 숨바.
Mandra.
숨바 쯧바 뽕알라 니세리라. 되네. 되게 데 subject 거기에 숨겨라 숨기나네. 숨바디레서. 숨바 쯧바 뽕알라. This one.
Oh, Dribba Boma.
니레 투바 꾼진도 주바. 셴게 템바 따나도 템바 니제다 담보데 투바 꾼진도 주바데 라야 던전 숨르시도. 도군 순진베 동니 템바라 가오라리 버 템바스. 템베 템바레 샬라 타르바 메베 주세. 템베 숨베 신도 고규르게 되는 네버 제베 탑소스 숨도와. 다데 담보데레. 도군 순진베 동니 템바라 가오라리 바세. This one.
This one.
Yeah.
So here we are on. That's a did go jump out of bed. Then sorry, one, two. The Sumbala. So we're on the third of the stanzas in this chapter, and this one is the beginning of the section where we're eliminating arguments, and the first one is proving the subduer's omniscience, the Buddha's omniscience, and So this first part of that is appropriateness of being glad about the teaching of emptiness, which annihilates suffering and its sources.
Oh yeah. Ta tukun sun jimbe tongni temba la kawara riba asigdwa. Oh, tene kasura. Nyomo ge wange le kusum le kiti sane. Oh, tene kwa ko yo resero. Kwa ko yo re te sonza ko tungye temba. Te kyu ane kunjung sun jimbe tongba ni de tengyora. Oh, tungye le tende tungye gi kyu kunjung imba hako nyomo ge tsawa de tangzin imba hako. Ane tangzin de sun jimbe chedo ane tongba ni temba de kawar rigire se. O tagi talia tongba ni temba de o la hako ya medu namsha kanga sun jimba do te yitsimba medu sta la sarwa.
Oh, that's such a did Yegiman there.
Wala ane cheda. Yusumba de.
Oh.
De jide yonso meshiga tene tobe taburungan saiden roswa. Niba den roswa. Da sumba de ra. Jide yonso meshiga tene tobe taburungan. Tengan zu temba shir sheba sidan sitab shewa ye tabdan tishin shisung di sari shemba.
Oh, ne.
Jide yonso me ten tobe taburungan ti tsorwa.
No, ne.
Tengan zu sumba de re. Sholoka sumba de re da. Sholoka sumba. Oh, subject sumba.
Subject sumba, no, ne. Oh, ne. Zuba bon one, wa. Then it dambo de.
Sumba zuba bon ni. Ta tili mangbo do de ma ni do de. Tuba kunjin do tuba. Ni shengi temba tanan do temba serwa. Tuba kunjin do tuba tili sumdo. Tukun sun jimbe tongba ni temba la kawreba. Tumbe temba le shen la tarba mebe kyuse. Tumbe sumbe shindo kogyurgi tunam niebar chebe tapso su sumdwa. Sumgi nane da tangbo dere. Tukun sun jimbe tongni temba la kawara rikba asere tangbo.
Oh, ne. Winter. Oh, dude. So we're at this 278, which is the that it's appropriate to be glad about the teaching of emptiness, which annihilates suffering at its sources. Sorry, I was just having trouble finding lining up the Tibetan with the English here.
Chisa.
No, Jason.
Ya, tukun su tungye demba sigora. Tungye demba de kwa de reswa. Kwa tungye de rangshin chen de gyuka resne kunjung demba rese. Leta nyomo ni dirwa.
No.
Ane nyomo de gyu de meba so na. Gyu kunju de meba na ane de tungye demba yongi ma reste de. Gyu kunju nyomo ge tsawa de dangzi re. Tene dangzi sun jimbe tongba ni demba la kawara rikba rese shekdwa.
Oh, ne.
Dagi tangma de ko tongba ni taya de nele tongba ni taya de kanga meba sun chengen de chindo yitsimba choma sun se saswa.
No, ne.
O de taya de kawara rikba rese. Tungye di meba soya tsawa de meba soya re. De kawara rikba rese. Shekdwa.
So it's saying that it's appropriate to delight in, I guess we could say, appropriate to delight in the teachings on emptiness. How is that? Because
Ale de do na ni to Joshua says that's true inside. The labs are inside.
cheap lapsanga, linear chatsang,
Love your marwe.
lab yo marwa.
Oh, and it did it one day, Sunday. When the tam nam ne che ten sewa yina to get the deeper to lapsara.
No, ne.
To she yin go or menzedo she nase. Teacher animal young you inside, somebody love you inside. So look at
No, ne.
oh, that.
That it's addressing the concern of the person who's saying, "Oh, these teachings on emptiness are I really happy." We read this assertion before, where I'm okay with teachings on high rebirth, but then I'm unsettled about the teachings on the emptiness. But so then here it's that it's appropriate to take delight in the teachings on emptiness, and this appropriateness is based upon the fact that true sufferings, these come about based on true sources, and true sources are is former karma and the afflictions that motivate those, and at the base of the afflictions is this grasping at a self. So when we understand emptiness, it eliminates this grasping at self, and then thereby eliminates suffering. So then it is a suitable. So the teachings on emptiness are suitable to delight in, to be delighted with. No.
Oh yeah, that de laginda. Oh, that de kawa rikba resrwa. Oh, in kawa rik tan kande resna. Tamje tanwe nyangwe le dawar yanzen chen kun de sigdwa. Me kun sun jin la te da ke megar gyurwa gyuchi shi sigdwa. Tamje tanwe nyangwe le dawar yanzen chen kun de sigdwa. Ane didu la sokba kune nyamu ge ngobo tamje la chakba tanwe se. O chiriba zo changje ba da jida ba da Thabkhe lenge changmage dende labge hore sigora. Didu la sokba kune nyamu ge ngobo tamje la chakba tanwe se. Koe dende ne lu longju la sokba changmaliya shinja de chakba de lakbar chakba de pangsuna mebe che suna nyangele ndeba dende tarba tok dungele targre se. shegi yore sigwara tamje chakba tanwe nyangelen dawar changjen bada chidabala sokba Thabkhe lembe yanzen chen kun deba yinla ase yanzen chen sli chiruba sigwara o tamje tanwe nyangelen dawar yanzen chen kun de sigwa de chiruba ge nelu loju kangala chakshin chakba dogusona ene tarba tobare cheche de konzuke kelengre sigwara ene kangshi tono kune nyomomba sun jimbe kansa das da kangshi to na tongba ni kangshi to na sigora rangone trube tongba to na ale tangma de chilabga nyamdo labshaga
Nyamdo
oh ya kangshi to na se kangshi tene tongba ni ge kangshi ge tongba ni to so na se ni kune nyomomba kun sun jimba se tongba ni to shin te yane yando komne ngusum do togba la tene thar tene nyomo changma tamje zawane pa meba sotub gres gora nyomo kun sun jimba de karichene yungresna kansa da phumbu range ngoy trobe tongba teta ni sigora o tena se o de nyomo changma tamje zawane sun jinjige kansa da chu rangune trobe tongba de tena 메가 오른 교회 교치식 가오라리 소세 티 녀모 참마 탐제 자와데 메소야게 주디 땡기오레 틸레 메가와 제야케 요마레 틸레 학바르도 가와리 그레세 뭐 릭소세도 군신 진라 대단히 메가리 교로와 교치시세 뭐 디레 디사 야
The verse then reads, "These strange people all agree that by giving up everything, one attains nirvana. For what reason do they dislike that which puts an end to all?" These strange people means Samkhya's, Vaisheshikas, and the like, who believe in liberation. They all have this idea of they assert liberation in their tenets. So all agree that one attains nirvana or liberation by giving up attachment to everything associated with disturbing emotions, such as giving up pleasure and pain and so forth, then why do they dislike it when the person and aggregates are said to be empty of existence by way of their own entities, that empty of existing as their own entities? Talking about the emptiness of persons and the emptiness of the aggregates, both persons and phenomena. The understanding of this destroys all that is associated with the disturbing emotions, the afflictions, and then this is what they like. Then, therefore, they should be glad. No.
This one.
No.
Oh yeah. Didn't shit.
No.
Dan dole sigdo ati wode solo gachi de sungdo. This one. Nyangen de la che nam che yumese o nyangen de ba to ba che bala che tamje rangwene yoba minba de shekugre sa jingira. Dina kanga me teda shenya me se. Dina kanga me rangwene ruba kanga me ba o teda nyangele de bala sokbal yoba tile shembe che kanga ya rangwene ruba che shenla yoba mare sa jingira. Yoda me che tokba tang de shen se. O che kare na ti rangwene yosena ane di takta long digyo mare ene tsawane mes lawayena o te ane chedal long yora ne yoda meje tokba tandeshe gedar chönam tunge shimin gyurs yeme je takarula rangune ye jaji nebe chöme o tinde karulamna ane nyangele deba tarwa tobe gyulu dugu mare se sheson sos dichilamna.
In Nirvana, there are no phenomena. This
Sutra says.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So there's a sutra here, a sutra quote that reads as follows. The first line is, "In Nirvana, there are no phenomena." Here, it's referring to there's nothing that exists from its own side, and through understanding that everything is empty of existing from its own side, then you enter nirvana. Whatever does not exist then never existed. This is an explanation of existence from its own side, or intrinsic existence, or inherent existence, or existence as its own entity. This does not, never has existed and does not exist. So what does not exist never existed. The suffering of those with the ideas of existence and non-existence. Here the existence and non-existence expresses the suffering of those with ideas. So those who hold on to these ideas that are the two extremes, either the extreme of existence, where you're holding on to that persons and things do exist from their own side, or non-existence, where persons and things completely don't exist, and who with ideas and then act accordingly will not be pacified. They can't possibly reach liberation through these extremes.
Well, tenda korada nyangelen debe chekaya rangune yoba mare sungudwa nyangende le chutnde Yoda meche ne rangwene yoba samlutane tunge shiwe kyulan du mare. Tene tsawane mebatane tunge shiwe kyulan du mare standa dire. Kesong sosa. Yeah.
So you eliminate suffering by understanding that things do not exist intrinsically from their own side. That eliminates suffering. But the idea that things do exist from their own side will never be a basis on which you can eliminate suffering. And then also the idea that things completely don't exist will never be a basis for the elimination of suffering.
No, yeah.
That's the meaning of this.
Drisa.
No, Drisa.
Oh yeah, te kona nye chinchi malo bar mawa nesikdo ta tenda. Ngobe nelu tartuk bade. Chinchi malo bar mawa nesi. Ya na. Koe tungele trewe tab chinchi malo ba. Ane nelu tartuk di mawa nesiki wara. Te kona nye chinchi malo bar mawa ne. Tube sung mado. Sanje chumden deke sung di mado. Changchen ba dan chitra baso. Laya chungse jan mawa mebes. Konzu tenpa suye tende sheba mendo songe wara. O temu mayi be chosu shebar chao se. Tenchen rebar chonga la chashi rongya. O teda rangwe ne madrube tongba re se. O tende komba songba de tuba sanje chomden dege songba ramado shenda suye jan te sheba mendo songe wara. Songdo wa.
So the undistorted, it says, since, we go on in the commentary, since only the Buddha's words contain undistorted statements about suchness, and Samkhya's and so forth do not even do not make even the slightest mention of it, one should recognize it as a unique teaching. Here that it's referring to Buddha's undistorted statements. It's saying that the Samkhyas and so forth have distorted statements. The Buddha has this undistorted statements with regard to reality, whereas the Samkhyas don't have that. And what is it? So what is? And so then, this is a unique teaching to the Buddha's words, and so that is that things function as dependent arisings while completely lacking any kind of intrinsic existence from their own side.
뭐야, 다 니바들다요. 니바 덤베 템발레 셴라 타르바 메베 규센식도아. 오 덤바 산제 좀 된데기 템발레 셴 엠베 셴라 야네 타르바 토버치베 디 람라테네 타르바 토브네바디 요바 마레스기 와라. 오 디셰도아. 탐제 땅에스 되도아. 탐제 땅에 냥엘렌 다와라 양센chen 군 되바 인하세. 오 ködan mudi chela kechi yuche nasikdwa. O tene nelu longje la soba te sama tamjele ya ene chakba shenje chakba la soba nyomo pang sona tangwe nyangelen deba topgde sede chiruba sama chiruba tarba dongge sama ge lapdo asgore keling do ase te na nangba da nangba ge tene de chala soba te nyomo de pang sona tarba topgre segdwa 직벌이도 개발개면도 하시고래 교단 무딕 잘라 캐치 있잖아 하세 저쪽도 와 노딜다
Now we're on to the second part of this particular topic of proving the Subdura's omniscience, and it's why there is no liberation in any teaching other than the teachers, the Buddhas. So the question is, if these strange people, meaning the non-Buddhist philosophers, all agree that one attains nirvana by giving up everything, that means giving up, eliminating attachment, and thereby all the other afflictions, then what difference is there between you and the non-Buddhist philosophers, the Forders here, called the Forders? What difference is there? There isn't any. He or she is asserting that there's no difference. You're both saying that one attains nirvana by giving up everything.
Oh yeah, that kebar yor is gora. Gangshi tongda meshe de Geshe tongor chebar yor sigdo. Tedane tongye tabsamdo se jese. Tongye sambasamdo se oh nyomo kanga pangore 상만의 현자 방송에 니 타르바 토그레스 그 삼바samre lab기점 라바sam레스 요라 대단에 동에 삼바sam도 세계에서 치료받도 다스겨라 동에 탑 메시베에서 간데스 제 차고 방고래 녀모 방고래 콘도 방고래스네 디 탑디 친지 말로 바신기요 말에서 요라 동에 탑 메시베 개발도 제베에서 녀모 봉에 탑디 뽕고레스 삼개월에 랍개월에 이나 녀모뽕에 탑친지 말로 보다 신기요 말에 상계 좀 된 되게 녀모뽕에 탑친지 말로 보다 캠바레 디 개발해서 거라 현대 강시 코로 동에 탑 코로알라 현자 동아 코로 빵바 코아 빵바스네 되게라 코아 동아스네 코아 빵에 녀모빵에 코아 빵에 저도 랍그레 셰그레데 이나 코아다 녀모빵에 탑친지 말로 보다 신기 말에 상계 좀 된 되게 디캥기래 디니 개발해서 그도 현대 강시 코아동에 탑 쉐탐제 랑신게 동바 메시바 대 지시 동아리 제버죠 녀모다 코아 간데스 동투그래 동투그 말해서 교디 매버서 투그 말해서 요라 탑 신질로도 신배체로서 탑아토에게 탑 신질로도 신기래 다 요래 다데 딱바 찍고 라마 요래서 람네트네 당진데 유해바 삼사도 탑친질로도 삼바래서 거라. 네. 어디로? 강시 동답시대.
So here, again, it's a question of dividing the stanza into two parts, so we'll address the first two lines, but I'll read the whole stanza. How will one who does not know the means to give it up do so? Certainly, therefore, the Sadhguru said, there is no peace in any other teaching. So here, addressing that first two lines, then I'll repeat them. How will one who does not know the means to give it up do so? So the commentary says they are different. The non-Buddhist philosophers are different in that they merely have the wish to give up everything, but do not know how to do so. I think, let's say, well, the translator, I'll just do it the way the translator chose here. The Tibetan order is a little bit different. How can those belonging to other systems give up cyclic existence while they cling to wrong methods? That's their problem, is that they cling to mistaken methods, and so they do not know the means to give it up. Here means they do not know the unmistaken means to give it up, and that and giving it up, the unmistaken means is to understand that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence.
비슷해. 대나 예버 토바에 셴도 시와 메지 송세더라. 자와 시간 입어더라. 대나 예버도서 코아다 코에 동에 봉에 탑 진지 말로바 얘네 동반이 쉐바 매바 되나스고라
네.
네바르 되네 네바르도 투바에 개종 당보네 되니도 되는 네바르 투바에서 투바 상계 좀 된데 근데 송샤스라 가르스네 개종 당보네 되니도 개종 당보 균슈 생겨져라 균슈세 체르혼세 체르메오 자좀바스 되네 생겨져라 개종 당보세 당보 균슈 생겨져라 통람리아 네 된게 박배 강사들이 어때요 당보들 균슈 세르치다데 지달로 말 개종 당보 균슈네 상계가 송배 람데니를 때는 균슈 토바데 요래 송거라 니바 체롱다 숨바 체르명세셔라 니바 체롱세데 코알야 데베 감레 렌칭니 수르용 아니 타르바톰 롱게시오라 다디르 그래 숨바 체르명세도자 데베 감마제 요바 타르바톰게 톰롱게시오 디레 시바스도 트라좀 바테레 녀모파니 코알레 탄롱게 트라좀 베칸사 오딘 제부 시부딘 데네 시부세오라 규슈 데네 청운 데네 치몽 데네 트라좀 데네 세라 donde trajum ba thomgede ini sanje sumbe lamdi kombal tene yormaado pharebu o tene trangjen ba da chiru ba te zulia tende thobade yo mare sungora dingido sa pharebu mawane gejon dage tongo she pharebu shende chiru ba de da mawage lamde zulia ni kaje komnaya dame tokba medu sanko 개종 당보다 니버도 숨배 시버 토베 요 말에 송고라 개종 다게 동호스 토바 요 말에 동바레세 셰소 던딜라 코네 송배.
Okay, so we left off.
Go back to where we were.
Yeah, no, I can go
Therefore,
back.
the Buddha's teaching.
Therefore, certainly with this in mind, the subduer said, and I was about to get to this, give Genla's explanation of this quote. The first practitioner of virtue here, and the second and third, and then the fourth, are explaining the levels of practice of somebody who's entered to the path of seeing. So they're talking about the 4 levels of practice of somebody who's entered. This is talking to Hinayana path that entered the path of seeing. So the first level is called stream enterer. Then there's the returner. The second one is the returner. Then there's the no more return, and then the fourth then is the arhat. So then they achieve this based upon understanding that persons and phenomena lack any kind of intrinsic existence from their own side. So others' doctrines lack such practitioners of virtue because they don't teach this the unmistaken means. They teach mistaken means. So on account of this, then the Buddha said, there is no peace, no attainment of liberation and or nirvana, or otherwise called nirvana, in any teaching other than this.
당아저 숨바들다. 숨바 던베 송베 신도 골교기 되는 네버제베 탑세. 던베 송베 네치 신도 골교 신감 된데 요래 네지 잠불린 된데 요래 네세 냐와 요래 이다 요래 세르바 된데 숨샤세 요르바 다디 냐와 이다 세고지 마르 요쇼 네 진직된 메다 요래세 네 하든데 요래 숨주삽숨 요래 당베 신감 요래 네데 체체인데레세 된데 숨샤든데 요라 오 대조 강가세 요라 던베 송베 신도 고교지 되는 네버제베 대조 강가에 컨데사 하고 또 그래 던베 송베나 신바 대세 요라 뒤탑듯이 요라
here in the second one, in the third of this, proving the subduer's omniscience is the means to gain certainty regarding extremely hidden matters taught by the teacher. Extremely hidden matters here means like the Buddha explaining how different deity realms, all these different things that are not perceptible, like deity realms, and then within the deity realms, explaining the size of the deities and their lifespan and so forth. These are extremely hidden things. So. So the question arises: did Driva did what? So if he is omniscient, then he must have super knowledge of hidden things such as the size of Mount Meru and the continents and so forth. But how can one be sure of that? So the answer then is one can ascertain it with the help of inference. We can't know this directly, but we can, based on reason, we can, in logic, we can understand. We can ascertain this. We can determine this.
Oh, this all got Nabatira. Sanje Kison Kogurla Sidwa. No many Kanshi Tesum Tenjurwa. They Tomba Nidande. Dini Kona Ichicha. Oh, that much all my Ungura. Sanje Jesumbe Kogur Midabada, Tungiawada, Tomada, Dame, Tomba Nila Soba, Teso Sigora. Oh, Kandichi in some Teson Keberjurwa. They Tomba Nidande say. What it in this Giro Sanje Sumbe, the Masho they would Sanje Sumbe, Shindu Kogur, and then was Tali Shesara. Oh, Jikanji Kamshanda Shayore, and High Ned, they said, dear. So which is on the Sun Sayora. Oh, there's a Ganga desert. Sanje Kison say, Shindu, there's a Kogur Tezo, Kanshi Tesum Kegura, they can't talk with us. They don't buy need and the Tinikona Yeshe Chas. Medaba, Tungawa, Tamebe, Tomba Nila Soba, Tembashi, number 2 La Soba, Tezo Tembate, Nelete, Mundo taken by the Shepherd Chene, Teletene. And then Sanje Sumbe, Shindu Kogugi net was a shade of grace. Only show look at each other. And the word in the shame Buddha.
So then the verse reads, whoever doubts that what the Buddha said about that which is hidden should rely on emptiness and gain conviction in him alone. So if you have some doubts about what the Buddha has said about extremely hidden things like or what is hidden here, the hidden things. It's not talking about extremely hidden. Sorry, it's hidden things. Hidden things such as true the size of different realms, and the Buddha describes these different realms and how the beings in those, what their bodies are like, and what their lifespan is like, and so forth. Then, so how would you gain conviction in this? You rely upon his teachings on impermanence, suffering, and emptiness, and then in that way gain conviction in him alone. gain conviction in what he teaches about hidden things. The commentary will explain this.
Sanje ge sung be sido sanje ge sung kogyur la sejwa sigan tambu tanda shegora sanje ge sung be yudan du ge chebe se be de lungba shenda re du zu shendo re yan de ba da chi chi tinde yon sigre du shendo re sigora chebe se tarang bu yenge tinde ene dola ri tu yo re se ro de be la sum ju so sum tene kan de chuga shendo je 하든지 요리 송고야란도 되네. 돌라 리투 라소바 내지 체다. 내 지중딘데 셰야 칸다딘데 요리. 에네 체릉부 요리 체다. 소다 대신도 미 뇌지 지den지 체소 소소교로 고규 어 미인지 den지 감기 내주 현다 요발라 소바다. 지중부 체라 소부딘데 송고야라. 네. 지den 감망부여셔로. 오 대저 강가데 내가 란서 소식에 올라 고규를 봐서 셰토고 말아봐서 그러던데 여봐. 네. 문문규를 말은 무슨 도 셰토고 말아 고규를 봐서 그러나. 얘네 상계 계속 고규를 세더라. 얘네 강시 송바 대달 여다 매년도 태숨 깨와는 교와 대에서도 강시 태숨 깨교와. 오 상계긴 직된 감된데 여셔 숨주사송 간데 주가 하이네 된데 여서를 때서 요이네 매나섬 태좀 상계 태줄 아시고 간신 태좀 깨교와 어디 태좀 대제배치도 건조 태좀 사는 태좀 대제네 근데 상계 송번은 시 덴바레섬 시고로 봐 시토베 탑시 가르치기 어려서나 태좀 제배치도 최탐제 런신지 주베 동반이 된데에서 대 동반이 된데에서 그래 동반이 장장 말입니다 봐 동해와 동아담에 세라 동해 덴바셰 군주 덴바셰 에네티 코알레 타리 라무니 트베 동바셰 덴바시기 시고라던다 동반이 스탠데세 자제 탐제 테베 덴바니게 네 신도 차와 대 동반이 된데 되니 코나 이치 자스기도 오 자제 탐제 테베 덴바니게 네 신도 차신 똑버까와는 지대로 송바신도 네바 페르제네세 오 산제 좀 된데게 코에 교가르레 물려라 때네 코알레 타르베 탑가르레 어때서 강가 숭바도 고 숭바나신 임바도 좁좁고요래 뒤체 탐제 미다바 임바도 공을 숨로 도도 봐도 가지고 공께 르베 좁좁고요래 사제 탐제 동에 임바도 좁좁고요래 아니 셔 탐제 랑원에 좁에 동바데 좁좁고요 르베 좁좁고요래 무슨도 또 말대 게 임바가 좀 망부시에서 진짜 티가 오늘 임바데 섬 하고 토고 돼서요래 삼로다나 대자마 하고서나 될 때네 산제 좀 된데게 덴바시 송바다 미다바 동에 또 담에 송바도 좀 오늘 해도 와서래 대접에 개심부를 사바래 대저 된데래도 와서 티는 산제 좀 된데게 직내 감 디마임바 사이네 셴다 요래 미네 셴다 요래 된데 송바데 덴바 멤버 가르서래 니고 규진에 깔라카보 대서 강가 송바는 시래도 와서래 아니 그 주시에 거든 요마르 와서 산제 켄이 송고 요래서고라 디페체네 산제기 덴바시 덴베 롱디 밀로아레데도 와서 녀르티 하고 지고라 데네네 짐바동알 때네 아니 롱지 좀 그래 와 아니 직내게 감시한다 셴라야 산딘데 요래 송바디 롱디 쳐jen스라 랑게 텐제들라 밀로아인데 산제 송바나 신고네 인데스고라 제바 숨게다베 롱이 베셔세 산제 송바딜이야 딜레 네바 민도아스고라 제바 숨게다 옹 숨게 네바 민도아 제바 네바 민도아 롱게 네바 민도아 멤베 주생게 민도아세레 페나 템바시 템베 롱신 오세라 템바시 템베 롱데 숨바나시 템바레데도아 테네다 신도 고주 지단 신도 고주레 또가와라 단데데 중세 고주로와 중세 고주디 야보지 시스톱스나 산제가 어때 템바시 숨바케 첨부티 코안 죽바다 코안 도바다 타르와토에 모네레도 와스 지베 주구도 와세 다고 지den 컴 데멤베 지den 컴 요레소나 사요레 지den 컴 셴다 요레 송바데 메덴바 카레스 텔레네바 카르도스레 케라 신송 군데 요마르와 남가 동바지는 잠불린디 요레 디마도 메바 카레 만저 요스디 장장 요고 신 잠불리 찍마도 메바다 lai ne shen da me ka re nya den zhu du ga bu du ga nga zu min du ga ya ga du ga shi da den zhu le ya du bu le te ki ya ga du ga te te le ya ga den zhu so bo ya ga den zhu da ne pe sum so ba me ka ji re zambulin li ne lung ba ka she kyo ba shi da du ka she yak bu chu bu du ga lung ba zi shin na se kang ga yue ba she lung ju kang ga bu yo da te le ya ga ji me ka re nam ga tong ba na li chik ma do me ko ya je ka re shen da me tong ba kang ga tong ba tong je de ko ka re mo di si ko ta tong da tem ba shi sung ba de mi lo ha trum ne te le te ne ne san je sung ba de ko ngu sum gi ne ko men do a men be chu ji men do a lung ge ne ko men do a san je chun sung ko de yo ma ra ene de tem ba shi sung ba de tem ba re de do a expectation o che o de ne strup ge de si go re no de de
So, if we read the commentary then says one might wonder whether the Buddha has said, whether what the Buddha has said is true or not regarding the size of the abodes, bodies, and lifespans of the 6 kinds of gods of the desire realm and so forth, from whom one is separated from by time and place. It can be in different times and as well as place, and regarding the size of the human physical world and so forth, all of which are hidden to common beings. These are hidden things. So one might wonder, it means that this is a person who has doubt about this. So to dispel such doubts, one should take as example the fact that the features of the two truths, which are very subtle and difficult to understand, the teaching that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, together with the feasibility of all actions and agents, are actually as he explained. So then, understanding through this that the extremely hidden things he taught are just as he described, one should gain conviction that he alone is omniscient. So what's being said here is that if we take Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths, and then we can establish these are something that's hidden to us, but we can establish these through, we can come to understand these through reason. We can approach it through, based on reason, and then we can have an understanding of for instance, the not just emptiness, but the impermanence, suffering, and as well as emptiness. So then we can establish and come to understand how these, how these arise based on how sufferings arise based on their sources or origins, however you want to translate that, and then come to understand true cessations and the true paths to suffering, so then the way we approach that is, even though it's hidden to us, we can understand it through reason. And once we come to an understanding of the Four Noble Truths, then based on that, one can then attain, well, what do you say, that develop some conviction in or certain knowledge in the Buddha's other teachings. Is different. Well, there's the 3 means of analysis. It's not contradicted by direct perceptions. It's not contradicted by inference, and then it's not contradicted by examination of scripture. Those three means then analyzing, then through that we can come to conviction in these what are really extremely hidden things, like the existence of the heaven of the 33 and the deities and Tushita and these kinds of teachings then are well, when you understand the Four Noble Truths through reasons, then based on reasons, then and then turn your mind towards these teachings, it basically is what you have to ask yourself is why would the Buddha choose to, once he has shown these very subtle teachings of the Four Noble Truths, why would he then turn around and lie about everything else? It doesn't make much sense. And so then you have to use just your own experience too. Why can't there be these realms where things are so much more pleasant, so much beings there are so much more blissful? Why can't that? Why does it just have to be our own world, and then everything else is completely, what do you say, empty in the sense of nothing else exists. It's just our own world in the middle of this huge multi-universe. So then and then these other worlds, well, why can't they be happier than than what we're experiencing? For instance, in our own world, there's animals and insects and so forth, and then humans, and obviously humans have a happier life than animals and insects, and even that some countries, people are experiencing a lot of suffering, and well, in other countries not. So then, and they're experiencing, relative to those, a lot of happiness. So why can't there be something that's happier than what we're experiencing? And so then if you subject, what do you say? After you've come to some firm understanding of the, what do you say, certain knowledge about the Four Noble Truths, then based upon that you can address this through the three means of analysis, and then just practically asking questions such as this.
Tinjun trebe tadan trewa trupchi lungla medembar sigdwa. Tinjun debar jungwe chedu sukanga. Ni rangwini trebe tongbati sigwara. Tinjun trebe tadan trewa trupchi lungla medembar sanje ke sungbari se tityanjan tongbani rede sanje tongbani sondwa se tityanjan chashaku mare sigwara. Rikba ke trupchi yore sigwara. Tindere sumla tudu bata trupchi yora. Truptogura pajude samla tangtungge china. Tinjun trebe tadan trewa trupchi lungla medembar se sanje ke sungbe chirse shaku mare sigwara. Rikba yangda ke ngebar chene se ko rikba yangda kyusen yangda sheki yore. Sumla tudu bata pa kumke tugure tinde seche. Te jesu shindu ko gyurge ten sanje je sungi tala tenne ngebar jesu. O te temba shida tezu drup tsane. Ene sanje ke sungbe shindu ko gyur tembe longde chochen. Ene rangi tenje tenla milo arede cheba sumdi tabe longin becher. Pena tenshi tembe longshin ose. Tezu peko ene drup tugure esi gwara. Sanje je sungi tala tenne ngebar chao ose.
then we read on in the commentary, having ascertained dependent arising free from fabricated extremes through correct reasoning without relying on scriptural citations as proof. Here, one should.
I'm just so lost.
You're lost? Well, we're in the middle of on page 242, we're in the middle of the commentary where we ended the sentence that said, one should gain conviction that he alone is omniscient. Okay, and then it picks up after that saying, having ascertained dependent arising free from fabricated extremes through correct reasoning without relying on scriptural citations as proof. Here, you okay now, or are you still looking? Did you maybe not type that in, or?
I'm lost. Is not one mic wonder?
Huh? Wat Diana did, have you got it? Okay. So one should ascertain extremely hidden things relying on the Buddha's words as reason. So relying on the Buddha's words as reason here means that you're coming to a firm understanding, a certain, what do you say? Certain knowledge of the Buddha's words. We can understand. Let's say, having ascertained, or here we used to use the word ascertained, but now we use this word certain, having gained certain knowledge, or that dependent arising free from the fabricated extremes through correct reasoning, without. So you're understanding dependent arising through and emptiness of things and persons existing from their own side intrinsically. You're understanding this through based upon reason. You're not just understanding it through saying, well, the Buddha said in Scripture. You're not doing like that. You're based on your own reason, and you can come to understand emptiness of inherent existence and dependent arising based on this analysis through reason, and then come to have a what do you say, a more and more refined conceptual knowledge of emptiness, all the way up to having a direct experience of emptiness. You can, and so then, so based upon that kind of an understanding, then we can turn our minds to this, the extremely hidden things that the Buddha has taught, and then have some, what do you say, develop some certain knowledge in those using the three means of analysis and so forth. Well,
This one.
no, do so.
Oh yeah. That's chilling. Oh, that been on the Sanjay Sumbe Midaba, that is a kind of target troop to Gressigua.
No,
Muslim to do but a troop to Gressigua.
no,
Oh, candid to be penang as a chief lametasa. Tandavich, Kanga Charvich, Kanga Naga Charvich, Nayoga.
oh, not that.
Dum said. Oh yeah. Ngai Charvich, Naita. Naita the shooting Essigora. And then Midaba Resco. Kitchen, you can Midaba Resera. Midaba in this. Cheba in Beaches. You don't get Cheba in Beaches. You don't get Cheba in Beaches.
No,
Oh, didn't
no.
you? Don't get Cheba in this. gyudan kengi cheba re ba se nga yu ni nga shu de dang sigira
No.
gyudan kengi cheba de ha ku do
No, ne.
no tanda ha ma go na o gyudan kengi cheba re de gyudan kengi chebe che se gora gyudan kengi ta de che do ase gyudan kengi te ne ko yong gu do ase gora
No.
gyudan kengi te ne yong gu mendo se ko sigma re musum le nyon ma da ha ku gre tanda ha ku mendo na ne de nga re da ase de nga ya re da ase dong so to ta gyudan kengi te ne yong so se ra ta yu shan ne ta yong de yong mendo 다 이제 다 용. 다 용서. 뭐 뒤에네 대응시리사 근데 다 수용으로. 아니 저쇼야 trachu신에서 랍디. 아니 메다바 인데 제바인 베셔. 오당고도 삼로당고도 제고제도 아바바바바바바바바. 티구디안 마찬가지 용금도 안 되네 당시고도. 다 교단 깽게 제네 깨고도 깨디 코피네 끼기 규진 되게 용거마도 규진 매나 까만구나 자 용거마로 이요네 조슈아 깨주세 깔래 거마도 진짜 야야
So, for an example here of how we come to understand what Genla just said was that you can understand through based on reason all the way up to and have a more refined conceptual understanding all the way up to direct perception. So then how do we go about that? Then so you can make this example of a drum. The drum a drum, a big drum that you beat with a stick. We're talking like that. A drum the sound of a drum is impermanent because of being a product. And it means a product here means because it depends on causes and conditions, and so then if the causes and conditions are obvious, you have to pick up a drumstick and whack the drum, and then you're going to be able to, and it has to have somebody to drive that with their hand and so forth. There's various causes and conditions that cause that to come about, and when you're not hitting, causes and conditions, the hand and the person hitting it and so forth. When you're not hitting it, then there's no sound. The sound disappears, and so you have to understand that it's impermanent. And if somebody has trouble understanding that, well, you can just take them over to a drum and give them a stick and then let them whack it, and then they'll understand that the sound of a drum is impermanent. It's based on these. Because of being based upon these causes and conditions, if you're not whacking it, it's just silent. So, or beating on the drum is maybe a better translation. But then, so then you also understand, Joshua as a translator, if it's impermanent because of being a product based on causes and conditions. Joshua has to sit there and breathe and he has to come up with the translation. He has to talk and all these different activities. And then Joshua is a translator, but if it was not a case of him, if he was some kind of permanent translator, then he wouldn't. It would be easy for him. He wouldn't have to make any effort and just sit there and he'd constantly be translating, and no problem there.
Oh yeah, that didn't go. That degree.
Hey, you have to call your friend, Diana. Hey,
Oh, yeah.
Diana,
Then this one's.
you have to call
Then,
Hal Lin.
Oh yeah, then this one's. Then this one.
No, that
Yeah,
do something.
that didn't she go. No, we send that kanga chick barba. Medan the China ko Kudan King ya ke ungora. Any church roko.
No,
Duran do se kiora.
no,
No
they,
kanga chibara.
no, they. So then everything is like that, and based on causes and conditions, things increase, and the causes and conditions are constantly changing. Oh, she might have to go out. I don't know, Diana. Yeah.
Then
Code.
that this one. Children over. Medaba shero.
alright.
That Dunga was sigma. Dunga. Then I was Dunga was she said Nadigra.
Go.
Medaba Dunga.
Hey,
Sarzen Yelengi Pumbu Church and Sigma. Garanzus Soboti Church and Sigora. And Dunga was in this Sigma. Dunga was in this. Tata Neve so the tension does.
no,
Tata.
Done.
Keva, Kava, Nawa, Chivala Soba.
No.
Then Chigua.
No.
Nazu Sarzen Yele Soboti Sigora. And then Dunga was Resigora.
No.
Dunga gave her Chigua Resigora. Dunga gave her Chigua in there. And then Tata Neve so the tension Chigua. Tata Kidus to make it do. Can do to make it do. None to do to make it do. She do to make it do. Tanda Jim and the toss on the Nagado to make it do. Sarzen Yele Pumbu Church. Dunga in the Tata Neve so the tension Becheta. Take a natural sober to make a church door, natural door. Take on the Hago door. To make Tata Neve so tension.
No.
Do
Tata Niebe.
Neba, Neba,
Oh,
Keba, Nawa, Shiva,
Oh, they.
Tezuka, Neba, Yagumarwa, to move it,
Yeah.
to make tension door.
No.
Oh, yeah. When did you learn your Chaman Champions? Kadu Soputanda, Kadu Nadroyoda, Kadu Shiroyoda, then they came into a. When did you take a call? Let a new movie Shamachico, Kazanena, Kazatena, Kichil Ramamidua,
No, they.
Pumbudua Ramamidua.
No.
They make you Shamachitua.
No.
Loco, Dunga, Tata, Yaganachila Sobe, Kanga, Tungakanga Yunguduas.
No, they.
What then when did you let the Yamu Beshamach Kadu Pumbutu, Kadu Nadroya, Kadu Shidoya, Akoyamiduas.
No.
Dunga Ravasere.
No, they.
Dunga Remedu Kiran Nasuna, Tinimu the Keshita, Tungin Dugas. And many chicks. And
How about that? And we can also investigate whether we have a nature of suffering or not by understanding, by making another kind of syllogism where what do we call them? The appropriated aggregates, aggregates appropriated through karma and the afflictions, and are they bring about suffering because of being what do you say, the basis for the arising of faults. So here the arising of faults would we can understand that through that once we're born, well, basically we look at birth, sickness, aging, and death. If we look at that, then you have no idea because of our what do you say, the five aggregates being under the power of our karma and our afflictions. We have no idea when these problems will arise, but when they do arise, then we know that that we're suffering. There's no problem with knowing that when we get sick, we're suffering, and with death, it's suffering, and aging, we're suffering. This is not something that's hidden to us. If it's a problem, then we can always, when you do get sick, and we can go by and say, if you say somebody had trouble understanding this, and then they get sick, then you can go by and ask them, are you suffering now? And so. And if they have, then Gemma is joking, it's just say, if they have trouble understanding that, then you could just whack them with a stick. then they'd have no trouble understanding.
Oh yeah. Takarine rikba tuye yore se yora. Ngusum gitu ni pa ngusum tudo pa da ngone resha sa ko pa tuye yore se.
So my point is that you can, based on reason, you can come to understand anything up to the point that you have a direct experience of it.
No, dine shi ta me ba ko ska ni ngam ma bo she ba. Rawa ta yo ma res nga ran su tin de sam gi ore de.
No.
So bu pa sha, sem pa sha, chwa pa sha, du shi pa sha ni. Da ji ye sam gi ore de yo ma res so. O chi ru ba sen ka she ta chung chung chi na lo le. Chung chung chi yo se ka she chen bu yo se. Ka she ge so bu de ta yin se ge da. O tin de se so. O ka she di de se ko ta de. 여나 라마베 다치네 풍부가 요새 되나래 요거라. 아니 소부데르베 셈데레 소아데 시티마레 디마예게지 요르베 텐션바. 델레 텐션바 시오르베. 대요 마레. 아니 디 소부데 다르베 셈데 다르베 소아다르스 마레시기도.
네.
테네네 라마베 다 메바 주부다 라마베 다 메데 라마베 다 풍부 삭제니네 풍부치 소부데 치치세요. 풍부 치치. 결로 라마베 다 메데 Ramwe Tade Pumbungada, Reje da Chikchen Miduas. Then the Nichen Miduas, the Stupidua.
And then we've had a lot of discussion about selflessness and the an independent self. That non-Buddhist philosophers have this idea that there's a little teeny inner self, then and then they have ideas of this huge, massive, enormous self pervading everything, and a self that is the aggregates and so forth. All these different ideas about the self, and so we can make a syllogism also out of this, that Chujin, the Dak, so the what do you say, the contaminated aggregates, or the appropriated aggregates, we usually, what do you say? Contaminated, appropriate, the contaminated aggregates, I think is probably better, is our, what do you say? Empty of a independent self because of being neither self-identical or diverse. Or one and many, and if they're so then you subject that to further analysis by saying that if it's self-identical, then it has to be one with the. You have to ask yourself when you analyze. You have to ask yourself: Is the body the self, or form the self, feelings the self, discriminations the self, compositional factors, the self, consciousness, the self, and then all of those. Then something that's totally, what do you say? Categorically different from these five aggregates. Is that the self? And you can't show that self. So then you come to an understanding based on this reasoning that the five aggregates lack an independent self. There's this understanding of selflessness. So this is again based on reason.
노야 다다가네 시고 소화게 동해 시그런 거 상담받아로 마도 단도 소화 당념을 지도지 야가래 줘서 야부시부 쇼섬 소화되어 기우라 다디 매버샤스는 야 동해 기우라 그 동해 지게스는 동해게데 동해 힘베셔 소화 동해지 동해라 소화 대화지게스는 야디 매버린 두두자 야 동해 기우라 그래서 그 교래 동해 시기도 소라 소소게 유철난 거 전에 소알에 대화다 동해다 지 교르젠도도 동해 기기도 하tin 가서 하고라
네.
되네 수이모 두시 품보 삼로당당게 딘데서 딘데마서 망차도 소소소 삼로당게 동해 망을 기기도 치료 사회 동해 권에 대해서게 동해 매네야 삼로당이 지리마서 차도당하게든 지기 다음에 삼로당이 지 소소소 삼로당 동해 기기도 심바 매기지 때도 미망차데 심비 삼로당이 지 만드네 소소소 지 만드네 동해 기기도 자고 삼로당당게 동해 기기도 자 풍부나가게 가지고 삼로당 한번 왜게요 말에 동해 기기요라 동해 와래서 요다 다 된다 가르쳐 그래서는 무슨 게 템바실에서 봐 코아코당에서 봐티 무슨로 톡톡바도 툭지 예서로 무슨 나라서 무슨 통돼야지 시샤 근데 텔레텐이야 툭고야래 타마타마데 고 무슨로 톡지 뭐랑 전질 톡지요 거라 진짜 무슨로 시제네 무슨 그 통해 예버 수다되어 자서 봐 자와시다다 레베시다다 대달 때는 메가바다 동아 담에 툭고야라 네 강가 유샤지 tum기선도 셰제 좀 다가서 좀 그래서 메다바레 동해와 지지요라서 셰기요 마라 공업을 고란 게 내주토네 안토네 셰기요라 어디서기도 뭐 똑슈지를 배쪽시거라 뭐 고란 게 내단 그 전에 좁토고요래 메다 동해 동담에 코아코르나 타바 톱다스 강가 뭐 똑슈지를 배쪽시기도 뭐 고란을 떠비요래 뒤쪽에 내가 요래 나란지 다가서 그 소샤가 좀 말해 좀 기선이다가 좀 소해요래 근데 말해서거라 뭐 고란 게 토네 자치다다 직치다 괜찮고 툭툭 그래서기도
So we can understand so the point is we can come to an understanding of these either impermanence, suffering, or emptiness, based upon our own experience. We can think about feeling, for instance, and feeling you have some kind of a neutral feeling, neither pleasure or pain, and then that will change into feelings of pain, and then we that pain doesn't that will change into feelings of pleasure, and then that pleasure doesn't last. Then we have feelings of pain or suffering, and so we can see through analyzing our feelings that these we can see how these are three types of feelings produce the suffering of suffering means the suffering of pain, and when we have feelings, obvious feelings of pain, and the suffering of change when pleasure changes into situations of pain and suffering. So then and then if we analyze also just how discrimination works, and it really just means thinking, and that a lot of our suffering is based on this kind of thinking about things and causing ourselves a lot of suffering just thinking about things. And so then in thinking we get involved with jealousy and anger and greed and attachment, all these kinds of and then we basically are making ourselves we experience a lot of unhappiness and suffering based upon this based upon thought or thinking. And so then we all have these experiences, and we can understand these what do you say, impermanence, suffering, and selflessness, based upon the evident what do you say, the evident strength of our own experiences, our own direct experiences, and so then and then using that we can then apply reason, and through applying reason we can refine our understanding of these impermanence, suffering, and selflessness, to the point that again we have a what do you say, an actual direct experience of these three truths about things, and it's really based upon our being able to observe for ourselves these things themselves. It's not like we're making up some kind of story about things, and then we have to or fantasy, and then we're using that as a basis for us coming to understand the truths that Buddha taught. That it's really that we're using our own experience of observing and observing our own experience of things through the power of that.
Ngobo Korang Trashuji Medadi Chebe Chesigua. Chesa Korang Kudan Kengi Kitanda Tindrik, Ngobo Korangi, Dobla Tennis, Dobstu Sugar Tennis, Dobla Tennis, Trup to Yore.
Like for instance,
Jangumare, Gigi Sumbere, Tatagare Sigomare, Ngobo Korang Tony, Toki, Trup to
so it's really from these composite things, through the power of these composite things. That we so it's through the power of composite phenomena that we're coming to understand these things like impermanence, just based upon the sound of a drum, right? And then we can understand that by sounding, just by sounding a drum, then we can come to understand that it's impermanent, the sound of a drum, because of being a product.
This one. Oh, dear. Oh, did that someone namdid the Tezuka Sumambu Namdik of Suyabutubiora.
So these things are proved soundly for instance, soundly proved. There are sound proofs regarding these things. In Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika means compendium of valid cognition, if you will.
Tatanda, Tisiora, Langbashena, Tembashi, Sanjik Sumbe, Tembashi, Tunge Temba Kunju Tembe Kone Kwa Korda, Lamje Tembada, enen gokwa ke tarba toptan temba shishtuwa
No.
temba shi namshade ko ngobu tushu ke ribe trup trup gure sigora o ti trup trup ye ti trup sa so na tene shine sanje chum den de ko anjuk do ke rimba temba la chame ki bure do ase temba sanje chum den de chama imba de pa trup yore o yang shanda yena o temba de chamare Koran karusungbe na ti chamare su trup yore chere
No.
Koran sungba po de chamare stambusha oda Koran karusung na ti tembare ti Koran sungdo wa di mare Koran men sungdo wa pa trup yore
No.
temba de chamache tene Koran sungba de kanga yimba trup yore
No.
nangba tendre mare sigore o tangbo ko sanje sung shabe temba de Koran sheya de ngone yima yitakje sheje ngone yimba de trup trup yore ngobu trup shigribe
No.
di trup sade oda sanje temba re do aser chame 기부래 도 고안 죽도 이제 rimbo sungpa ko sama sungchonga kibre do asgara ngarazun jignele yongda mi khashe o me de jiji sigis nge ama ga sigisena ama sama songni ko nge ama ga sigisena ama longjangra mi ji chen o jiji la resna jiji la suda jiji songsuda sna ganga de bashana mandire o didi korang shedo de dembare do kon dembare pasha gore 제조
called la de called la dene
Tomba tsama yimba suni te sheze sama tempere tembashi tempere sulab diyo mare sere.
la de
Oh, mangsha di lab diyo are. Oh, di chichijina songdo mama she song kogo so. Temba di song sa se tsama yimba songora.
la de
Nangba di mare se gore. Temba re se. Tangbo korang she shabe temda de. Yimba yi tak je je di temba oh. Da di temba korang temba re sha se gore. Marazo mile yorwa. Mi kashe o kogo she so temba re se gore. E kashe ya ko she ba de temba yime itane. O ko temba re sha phala gudwa.
la de
O di ko re se gore.
la de
Temba chama tumne temba chama tugure.
la de
Ten she ba de chama tumne ngone ba tumne. Ani te tenge de chama re se gore. Temba de chama re se je ko ten kanga chama re su tu dio ma re se.
la de
O di la. Di.
The Buddhist approach is therefore to take the Four Noble Truths of the statements of the Buddha, the teacher, and then come to a certain knowledge that it's, the truth that through truth's origins and sources, suffering, true sufferings arise, and through true paths, true cessations of sufferings arise, and once you have established that through your own investigation, using the strength of the strength of our what do you say, composite things, then we can understand that the Buddha himself is a what do you say, perfectly, we used to translate it as a perfectly right person or a perfectly valid person, and so it's through taking the teachings of the Buddha and relying on, subjecting them to our own analysis, that then we come to have to prove to ourselves that the Buddha is a perfectly right person, and then whereas in other systems, it's asserted that the person, his or herself, is a perfectly right person, and therefore anything that he or she said is perfectly right and is valid, and so then this is a way that is used, but both of these ways are used just in more mundane terms, where well, my mother said this and about this person, and therefore that person is a valid source, and so that would be depending on just the person being said to be a valid, perfectly right person, but then there are others. There's others who would take what that person has said and then subject it to critical analysis and come to understand, oh, this person is a valid source of information, or whatever we're trying to prove about that person, just in a mundane way. So the point is that the Buddhist approach is to first prove that what the teacher has said is valid, and then in that way come to understand that the teacher himself, the Buddha himself, is a perfectly right person, as opposed to the other way around, just sort of accepting that the teacher is a perfectly right person, and then everything that he or she said must be right, like that.
Oh yeah, that the love shashan kazare.
No.
Oh, that the dos. Nebajaw. Ji namshani cholang yapsege sheba dansugdo. Cholang yose lobe cholang the chiji trababe. Chamanam dikapsu shege or chamber.
Oh,
The chama to get down tembashi to it.
Oh,
Chiba resera.
Oh,
Shingda chimbo nam drawer shadow, Ludu down Tommy to Chiba or Resigora. Come dirni Samashi namshale. Don't over Cheba yenose. Come di Samashi kone, ta kone. Musum Samaka tung it on the line ba. Musum Samaka tongue de Shisha. Ain't it task on a trashimada the Chebicher. Gujing Cheba, then I have that to some Musum to Buddha. Musum Samaka to it, Musum Samas Shisha. Tell it then a talk on a Cheba Samas Shisha. Any longest Samas do Tadangazo, San Diego Sumbe, Shinduko Jutembe, Long to Sukanga, Miluare, Tembe, Shitembe. Miluare to us at Sumbasha. Tell it then longest Samasera. And a penny jacket Samas, Samashishara. Penny jacket Sama. Penny jacket Samasana. You got us order. Palanda by missing a order. Tanda by your mission. Pamis, Palandra, which Tapo my dear question nothing in the tank you sarangima. By missing it.
Oh, you're there.
Really and wrong cigarette.
Oh, you're the one.
Oh,
that's a young.
only by missing order. And
yeah.
oh, Palande Pamid and Raosera. Oh, Palande Pamid conditions. Palandrabo Yores to Chambores, Lamna. Go Petil to Dutch Hakoyora. Or Tindusor, that's Samashi or S. There's a chibarete, or Samalet and the Tukuris, Musum Sama, Chivat Sama, Penny Jagit Sama, and Longit Sama Tindel, then Tukuris.
We'll just to close out the lesson, and we just have these two sentences at the end of the commentary that say, regarding the general presentation of this, the reasoning and so forth, and using, what the strength of composite phenomena, then we can look in the explanations of Dignaga and his spiritual son and as being like those, or reliable, like the great trailblazers, the great trailblazers being Nagarjuna and Asanga. And Dignaga and his spiritual son means Dharmakirti, his spiritual son. So then, in this context, then, objects can be understood through the presentation of the four kinds of valid cognition. Let's see, she has a footnote on this, but what is being put forward is by valid cognition. There's four types of valid cognition. There's the inferential cognition. There's there's what do you say? Scriptural valid cognition. There's direct valid cognition, And there's, what do you say, analogous or one by using example, I guess, or not metaphor, yeah, something, analogy that somebody who, again, I gave the example of like, somebody is, you can give the analogy that that person is, very independent and strong, like a bull, a wild bull. There are different, examples in different cultures of these, what do you say, ownerless. There's no undomesticated domestic animals that live in the wild. That's the example. What do you say? Wild bulls, we have them, or wild horses, we have many different things.
Oh yeah.
So that's the end of the lesson. Then we'll dedicate.
Oh yeah.
I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traversed the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds.
Oh yeah, that's all. Oh.
Did you check out?